You know Colin O Brady, Oregonian, adventurer, crossed Antarctica on a sled in a feat he's called the impossible first, while National Geographic is asking, is it though?
If I could do one thing after all of this, it'd be make it right for them.
You're supposed to be rewarded for doing the right thing. She was fired for it.
It just offended me.
Then the New York Times picked up the story. And we're keeping Portland weird with something that's totally normal in Texas.
How you gonna hate on that? I don't hate on your ride.
Here's the story.
Don't hate on my ride. Come on, I'm just trying to get into the weekend here. It is Friday. Thanks for being with us. I'm Dan Haggerty. Welcome to the story with who else? Dan Haggerty. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for using the hashtag HeyDan to talk to us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and everything else you use to say hi, because you know we will probably talk back. And I want to start tonight by talking about two famous Portlanders. The first one is Gordon Sondland. Now, you might have heard by now that President Trump just fired him as the ambassador to the EU. Nightly News covered it, but we have a little bit more to say. He was our big Portland connection to the president's impeachment, and it looks like our boy's coming home.
So how did we get here? Before he was ambassador, Gordon Sondland founded Portland-based hotel chain called Providence Hotels. He and his wife have given a lot of money to causes in Portland. After President Trump was elected, Sondland made a $1 million donation to his inauguration. Then he was appointed as EU ambassador by the president. Sondland became a household name, you could say, last year when the Democrats started their impeachment investigation into President Trump.
Was there a quid pro quo? As I testified previously, with regard to the requested White House call and the White House meeting, the answer is yes.
During the impeachment trial, Sondland's name came up a lot.
Corroborates Ambassador Sondland's testimony that everyone was in the loop.
Gordon Sondland.
Ambassador Sondland. Ambassador Sondland.
Ambassador Sondland?
Ambassador Sondland. Sondland.
At the time, Sondland said he had no plans to resign, but clearly that's changed. And that's how we got here.
It is also worth noting that Sondland separated himself a bit from Providence Hotels when he was appointed as ambassador. He was stepping down as CEO, but he did keep his investments in the company. We don't know what he's going to do, if he's going to go back to maybe a more active role in his hotel chain. We'll keep checking in and we'll keep you updated. All right, let's move on to the other recognizable local name, Colin O Brady. You know this guy, right? I mean, he was on KGW like a million times. We did a bunch of stories about him. He's a Portland guy. He's an adventurer. He made a huge name for himself nationally and internationally in 2018 when he crossed Antarctica. He called it the first ever solo, unsupported, unassisted crossing of the continent. Then he wrote a book about it called The Impossible First. And he did a whole lot of press afterward, even with us here at KGW, where he talked about a lot of things. All of his amazing accomplishments, like summiting the tallest peaks in every state, finishing with Mount Hood.
Summit of Oregon! I freaking did it!
And, you know, that was incredible. That was so much fun to set this world record and to be able to finish it actually, you know, here in my local community. So many people came out and supported the finish of that up at Timberline Lodge. We had a big, you know, celebration up there.
So kind of a funny story. We were actually supposed to have Colin O Brady in the studio today for Tonight with Cassidy. But then we saw this. National Geographic published this massive investigation questioning O'Brady's story. The article says that O'Brady embellished his journey across the Antarctic. Now, in his book, O'Brady wrote that at times there was no way of contacting people for help. The article claims that wasn't true. O'Brady also boasted he crossed the entire continent, when in fact he crossed kind of a narrow section of it, far smaller than stretches previously crossed by other adventurers. In short, we got tonight's quote of the day by famous writer-adventurer Jon Krakauer, quoted in the article saying O'Brady needs to be called out for his false claims. Now, we interviewed the author of that Nat Geo article today, and he stands by every word of it.
I've spent a couple months on it. I've interviewed dozens of people, including many of the world's top polar experts. And it's raised a lot of questions about the claims that Colin is making about what he achieved in Antarctica.
So back to kind of what we were saying before, how he was supposed to be here, Colin O Brady, in the studio today. But then we saw the article. Then we wanted to talk about that instead. So he decided to postpone, which I do completely understand. He wants to get his ducks in a row. He did put a statement out on Instagram. He says that he, quote, stands by every word in my book. But we certainly hope to get a chance to talk to him in person soon. All right, let's get to our big story tonight. Really kind of a big coincidence. We even got to do the story we're about to share with you. You might have heard U.S. Bank is doing a little damage control because of something that happened in Clackamas back during the holidays. This woman here, Emily James, she worked in a U.S. Bank call center, and she was on the phone with a customer who couldn't access his paycheck, a pretty good one, like $1,000 or so. Mark Eugenio was out of gas at the time, stranded. It was right around Christmas, remember. So Emily got permission from her manager. She drove 20 minutes to where he was stranded, and she gave him $20 so that he could get back on the road and home to see his family. U.S. Bank was so proud of her for going above and beyond that they fired her and her supervisor.
I was exasperated at that point. I just said, I just wish I had $20 just to get home, you know what I mean?
It's Christmas Eve, let's get this guy home. Something, let's do anything. And she goes, yeah, that's fine, go ahead and go. I went and got in my car and left, drove over there, handed him $20, said Merry Christmas, gave him a hug, and then left. I went right back to work.
Do you feel like you did the right thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
U.S. Bank policy says that call center workers can't interact with customers or something like that. But on their website, U.S. Bank says their employees are empowered to do the right thing. And we weren't the only people who noticed that little discrepancy there. The Oregonian did too, and they did a bunch of stories on it when it happened. And then someone else picked it up. Nicholas Kristof from this tiny little daily newspaper you might have heard of called the New York Times. He saw it and he slammed U.S. Bank for what it did. Kristof wrote in his column saying that, quote, when young Americans say in polls that they react more positively to socialism than capitalism, it is because of the hypocrisy of institutions like U.S. Bank. He even demanded the bank apologize to Emily. Kristof and his wife, Cheryl Woodun, just happened to be here today at KGW promoting their new book, Tightrope. So I was sitting down talking to them about that when I asked Kristof about his column.
I was sure that I was not going to write a column that weekend because I was on book tour. I was running around the country, but it just irritated me, and I wanted to hold the bank accountable. And I also wanted to make sure that every other CEO knew that if they do something like this, then their feet will be held to the fire as well.
Now, for what it's worth, U.S. Bank has apologized. We got a statement from them. Quote, our recent employment decision in Oregon did not reflect who we are as a company. U.S. Bank fell short of our others' expectations, and we sincerely apologize. Now, Emily has since actually been offered her job back with more pay and more responsibilities. She hasn't taken it yet, but her supervisor has. And for something that we think is worth your time, how about the Oregonian series that Kristof said that he was reading when he became aware of this story in the first place? Reporter Samantha Swindler first wrote about this story in January. She talked to Emily James and her supervisor. She kind of broke all of this. They have all kinds of videos and interviews up, so we want you to go on there and check it out and support some local journalism. If you see something that you think is worth our time, show it to us using the hashtag HeyDan. All right, the weather story today, this unbelievable flooding that we've been seeing in eastern Oregon. Look at this. It was washing out I-84 from Hermiston to Idaho. We got the chief here, Matt Safino, to talk about it a little bit. Tell us, how did we get to this point? Yeah. I know the people that lived out in that area knew this was a possibility, but for a lot of us, we looked at the TVs today and said, whoa,
where did that come from?
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
So this started early in the week. Remember Monday, we had very low snow levels. We had nice new snow on Mount Hood. Eastern Oregon was also getting hammered with snow to the tune of, I mean, even La Grande, which is down in a valley, had about 20 inches of new snow. Right. So we had several feet of new snow in the Blue Mountains, which feed, those are the headwaters of the Umatilla River. So then what happened is the pattern shifted, it warmed up, and we had this constant feed. We call it an atmospheric river, just focused on that area. This particular atmospheric river was dangerous for Northeast Oregon because the direction it came from, it was exactly perpendicular to those Blue Mountains, which just increases the lift, increases the precipitation, and it just kept going. So inches of rain after feet of snow, and it all came melting on down.
Is it rare?
That's how we got there.
Is it rare? Because some people were saying, man, I haven't seen this since '96.
Right, yeah, and in Eastern Oregon, I mean, I have friends over there in Pendleton who talk to people who said it's the worst they've seen in over 40 years. Oof. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. So it is rare, but it does happen. It was just that unique set of circumstances. And, you know, to the National Weather Service's credit, they issued flood watches and warnings. Didn't expect it to get this bad this quickly. So that can happen sometimes with weather. It's weather. Yeah, it's out of control. So yeah, the good news is the rivers are beginning to recede over in that neck of the woods, which is great news. So the Umatilla will drop on down fairly quickly. I believe we've got Maybe we don't have any graphics here for you, but I do have some over here for you. And I want to show you this. See that red line? That is the rate of rainfall, or of snowmelt rather. And it was 1/10 of an inch to 2/10 of an inch for 36 hours. That equates to just the contribution from snowmelt. 3 to 7 inches of water across the mountain range, basically, all funneling down into the Umatilla. This is video of the Umatilla this morning from Connie Maycumber. She said at that point the river had receded about 1.5 feet. So here's what's happening. Rain tonight, but it's getting colder. The snow level drops to 2,500 feet. There'll be new snow up there, which is great because that sequesters the moisture and keeps it from flooding, and the rivers will continue to recede. Now, eastern Oregon, turns out, is the location of Oregon's worst natural disaster ever. This is a picture from the Oregon Historical Society of the town of Heppner. On June 14th, 1903, a flash flood blew through town. It is Oregon's deadliest natural disaster ever. 247 people perished in that. They were finding bodies floating downstream in the Columbia River. Because of that, it went from a peaceful stream that goes through town, Willow Creek, to a 40-foot wall of water that knocked out basically in 15 minutes. 1/3 of the structures were wiped out. And there are no weather records there because the weather observer and the weather observing equipment drowned in the flood, as did his family. So again, I just thought it'd be interesting to contrast and bring up the worst weather disaster, natural disaster in Oregon's weather history. Dan, back to you.
I've never heard that one, Matt.
Right?
Thank you so much. All right, appreciate it. All right, let's talk now about cap and trade. Let's head down to Salem. So many people have opinions about this new bill that lawmakers down in Salem are actually coming to work tomorrow. They're going to work on a Saturday and hear them all out. How about it? I like it. They're expecting so many people to show up to testify that the legislature put this notice on their website. It says testimony may be limited to 90 seconds per person, which is kind of a short amount of time to get your point across. I mean, just think about how long it takes me. You also have to show up early and sign up if you want to speak, so keep that in mind. Now, we saw a ton of people at yesterday's cap and trade hearing. Got a packed room to show you right there. Of course, while this was all going on inside, this was outside, truckers protesting the bill. We also want to note that the bill could be passed out of committee tomorrow, which means it would head to the full Senate. If you remember when that happened last year, that's right, when Republicans walked out. So we'll keep you posted on what happens. We also got an email I want to share with you last night from Cindy Sutherland asking us to look into how much cap and trade will cost the average person. Now, a lot of people have been wondering about this, and we reached out to both Democrats and Republicans for some answers. Go figure, they gave us different answers. Democrats want you to know, first off, that the bill is not finalized, so neither are these estimates. But they say people who live west of the Cascades with moderate to upper income should expect their transportation costs to go up $100 per vehicle. They also say natural gas users in this income group will see a $50 cost increase. Low income groups will either see a minimal increase for these costs or no increase at all. They also don't expect electricity costs to go up for anyone. Again, these are early estimates, so we're going to check back in with Democrats a little later in the session to see if we can get some more concrete numbers. Now, as for Republicans, they believe cap and trade will cost the average family of four $650 a year, but they're basing that estimate off of last year's cap and trade bill. They say taxes are so complicated that the Legislative Revenue Office might not have enough time to actually come up with these new estimates to let us know by the end of the session. Every Senate Republican has signed a letter asking for new cap and trade analysis on the cost and what it's going to cost us. Now, I know, look at me, I'm out of breath just telling you all that stuff. It's a lot to throw at you. We've got all of these cost breakdowns up on kgw.com. Also, keep sending us your cap and trade questions. We will get them answered for you. Comment on my Facebook page or use the hashtag HeyDan on Twitter.
When the story continues.
I'm hoping that it doesn't really progress much further.
Cruise ships are great till you're trapped on board with coronavirus. How this local woman who seemed fine when she talked to us got taken away by medics before the day was out.
We could post up with the J's, you know.
The shoes say Portland, but the rims are all Texas. The little piece of Houston you keep spotting in the Rose City.
And then by the time I turned around, the water was up to my knees.
So you had to climb out the window to escape?
Yep.
Got a little update for you on a story that we did last night, and frankly, I didn't expect it. Maybe I'm naive. I thought she was going to be okay. We told you about this Forest Grove woman who was stranded on a cruise ship in Japan under quarantine because of the coronavirus outbreak on the ship. Well, she's tested positive for the virus. We talked to her a couple of days ago before she was diagnosed, and she seemed fine on the phone, like no symptoms at all. You see her here, that's Rebecca Frazier. She now has a fever and a cough and hopes it doesn't get any worse, of course. She's been taken off of the ship. She's in a hospital in Japan. Her husband and all the other passengers there are still confined to their rooms and may be there for 2 whole weeks. So that's pretty scary, of course, but we do want to kind of calm people down a little bit. We've had a lot of people saying that they're afraid to go on planes, they're afraid to travel, they're afraid of a lot of stuff because of this new virus. The reality is here in the U.S., the flu is a lot more dangerous. I don't know if that calms you down or not. So far this season, the CDC says 12,000 people have died from the flu in the U.S. alone. Compare that to about 700 coronavirus deaths in China. No deaths have been reported here in the U.S. By the way, doctors say if you're going to go on a flight, you're going to get on a plane, forget the face masks. Just wash your hands. All right, are you ready to keep talking about Cap and Trade 2.0? We are. We're politics nerds. Stick with us. Trust me, it's important. It's a complicated debate, and the bill itself is very complicated. It's 86 pages long. So Pat Doors has been breaking it down to the basics. Now, we know the bill limits the amount of carbon emissions pumped into the atmosphere, but how do they even measure that?
Carbon emissions are measured using chemistry and math. Scientists know different fuels create specific amounts of carbon dioxide when they burn, and pretty much everyone in the world agrees on the amounts, so figuring out what creates a ton of carbon dioxide is a math problem. For example, burning 1 gallon of gas in your car creates 19.6 pounds of carbon dioxide. A ton weighs 2,000 pounds, so 2,000 divided by 19.6 shows us that it takes 102 gallons of gas to create a ton of carbon dioxide.
We have a bunch of these little explainers. I mean, you see how quick they are. They kind of just break down one individual topic at a time. They're all on the KGW YouTube page right now, and you can check them out on the story playlist. Now, Cap and Trade's not the only contentious debate going on in Salem. Remember, they have more than 100 other bills in this short session. A big one is a safe storage gun bill, which got its first committee hearing just today. Now, a lot of people obviously have a lot of opinions about this, so let's break down what it would do exactly. Basically, if gun owners don't lock up their guns, they'd face big fines. And if someone else used their unlocked gun to hurt or kill someone, the gun owner could be held liable. Gun owners also have to report if their gun is lost or stolen. We'll keep you updated on this bill's progress through the legislature. Now, at the same time, Portland leaders are trying to address a big gun issue that we're having here. We've had more than 60 shootings in the city since the start of the year. We have a map here. It shows you where and when those shootings are happening, but the map only goes up through January. It's even hard for us to keep up with all of this, so you can imagine how hard it is for police. In fact, Portland police say shootings are being reported every 13 hours, and people are getting hurt or killed in those shootings every 2 days. Police met with the city council this week. They're asking for more money. They want funding for their gun violence reduction team. Police say that all these shootings are being done by a small group of people, so they need this team to investigate and round up the shooters. Remember, Portland police are dealing with staffing shortages already. They also have a brand new chief on top of now this spike in shootings.
You have to be Texas blood to know where to get them from. You know?
Texas moves to Oregon, literally, when the story continues.
We're just in this cage where we think that people don't think about us. We think that people forgot about us, and that's not the case at all.
No, it is not the case at all. This week, KGW launched an in-depth series inside Oregon's only women's prison. We followed 3 women in particular as they went through something called the LIFE program. LIFE stands for Lifelong Information for Entrepreneurs. It's created and funded by Mercy Corps Northwest, and it helps people in prison to get ready to re-enter the real world. Our series, Life in Prison, is up right now on our YouTube channel. You can check it out. You can find more information as well on kgw.com, including an update on one of our participants in particular named Vanessa. She is now out of prison and doing great. You see her here with her daughter, Sophia. The other 2 women we followed, Amy and Mariah, they are scheduled to get out soon. Let's bring in Maggie Vespa, one of the people at KGW here who invested a lot of time in telling these stories over the past year. And it's been great to see the response from everybody at home. It's been extremely positive.
The response has been so positive and so huge. I mean, we've gotten way more comments than we anticipated on this series, and we spent more than a year on it, so it's been amazing to see. But people people really connected with the women we profiled. I want to show you some of the comments. The first one I think we have is from Kathleen Johnson. She commented, Dan, on your Facebook page. She wrote hashtag Hey Dan. This story is amazing. I'm glad the ladies are getting a second chance for a great life. Karen Cluth Anderson wrote that she knows someone at Coffee Creek Correctional Facility, Oregon's only women's prison, who is not getting out. And she said it is helpful that the women have a chance to turn their lives around. And then on Twitter, Dave DeHaven wrote, hashtag Hey Dan, as a member of the Prison Advisory Committee, please know you served these women well by putting this program on Dan's story. He was a big fan as well. That was really cool to see.
Dan's story. I think he meant the story, but I'll take Dan's story for now, right?
Yeah.
I will say, well, I want to bring up one comment that we did get that kind of stood out, and it was a little bit critical, and it was about an editorial decision that we made while writing the story.
Exactly. It was a tweet. I want to show you that tweet now. It is from Deep Breath. Bob, we had a baby, it's a boy, all one word on Twitter. Hashtag, yeah, it was nice. Hashtag Hey Dan, they are inmates. What a ridiculous ending to an otherwise great story. So what he's talking about is that on night 3 after episode 3, in case you missed it, we revealed on air that we had written that entire series without using the word inmates because Coffee Creek Correctional Facility is phasing it out and replacing it with adults in custody. They feel like that kind of helps these women shift their mindset and take control of their lives a little bit better. Here's the thing though, we didn't do that because it's like the prison's preference or they just asked us to. We did it because it's the law. I want to show you a graphic now. Basically, last year officials lobbied for a new state law officially replacing the word inmate with adult in custody in all existing Oregon state statutes. It was House Bill 3146 and it passed and the governor signed it into law in June. So that is the law now. So all that said, you might have noticed in the piece, it still says inmate on the women's clothing when they're at Coffee Creek Correctional Facility. The prison is working on getting them new clothes that don't say inmate, but again, that's been replaced in all existing state statutes. So we wrote the piece without it.
Again, this coverage bringing up some conversation. We'd like to have a conversation with you about it. So get on the YouTube channel, check out all of Maggie's stories that she's done around this coverage, Life in Prison. Again, find that on YouTube or reach out to us using the hashtag Hey Dan. All right, when we come back after the break, we're going to read some comments. We're also going to show you a vehicle, a car that's been on Portland roads. I promise you, if you've seen it before out there, you'll go, tell me more. We'll see you after the break. Keeping Portland weird tonight is the caddy that can't be ignored. Now, I don't know how many of you are Redditors, but this Cadillac just kept popping up online a few weeks ago for obvious reasons. Look at those rims, man. Now, we could have left it at that, but we kept seeing pictures of this thing popping up on the internet, so we had to track down the driver. So, of course, that is what we did. So meet Jason Williams, who goes by Texas. Not really sure why. Apparently this is a big deal down there in the Lone Star State. He gave us a crash course on these rims. They're a huge deal in Houston, where he's from. He probably thinks it's hilarious that we're featuring him here on the story because this is a common thing back home. But up here in Portland, he gets a kind of different reaction.
And then you get some of the people that's not really about it. They don't know what's going on. So they eat. So I'd be like, man, come on, man. Just go about your day like I'm doing me.
Let him do him, please. Come on, Portland. Embrace the man. He's great. I love this guy. He even shined those things up for us before he came by the station. The car was looking nice, as was he. Hey, if you're keeping Portland weird, prove it. Hop on Twitter, use the hashtag HeyDan, or just find me on Facebook. It's that easy. Let's talk about some people who did that tonight. They sent some messages in to us. This is from Deborah. She says, Dan, you have come a long way since you first started with much anxiety. You seem much more relaxed and are able to have humor about things. Loving this new format of the story. It's getting better. Like the in-depth stories, thank you all. I like how she thanks all, because trust me, it takes a whole lot more people than me to make this thing happen. Then we got Bill Leslie. He wrote on Facebook, hi, quick comment or question about Oregon's gun safety storage. Bill, do you have a second? I do, Bill. I have 30 minutes, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, right here at 6 o'clock. Just message me the question. I'll answer it for you. Thanks for watching us here on The Story. That's it for now. Let's send things over to Laurel Porter, KGW News at 6:30.
Hey, Dan, I've been wanting to say that. Thank you. It's time for the news at 6:30.